Hey guys, so I have a discussion for you, and what I want to talk about is how fast you read, and how fast we all read, and why we're so interested in reading quickly. And so I want to posit a few questions at the beginning of the video, because I know a lot of people don't watch videos to the end, and so I want to ask you all who are watching, how fast do you read? How many pages per hour do you read? Do you want to read faster? Are you frustrated by how slowly you read? And do you think it would be beneficial to read more quickly? And so I wanted to pose those questions at the beginning, just because a lot of people don't watch the end, but if you're watching, let me know in the comments what your answers to those questions are. Now, I want to start off this discussion by talking about how fast I read, which is a more complicated question than it might seem on the surface, but I do have an answer, and I think I probably read about 20 pages an hour. And a lot of people are surprised when I say that, because a lot of people think that I'm a really fast reader, and I really am not. I just spend a lot of time in a week reading. You know, I probably spend somewhere between 5 and 6 hours reading every weekend day, and every weekday I probably spend between 1 and 3 hours reading. And so, you know, with that level of reading, that's 100 pages on both weekend days, and somewhere between 20 and 40 pages every weekday. That's 400 pages a week, which is, you know, longer than most contemporary fiction novels. And so I just read a lot. I don't read quickly. But I should also add the caveat to that how fast I read varies a fair amount based on what I'm reading and how what I'm reading is formatted. So when I'm reading a dense novel by Thomas Mann, for example, or Dostoevsky or James Joyce, I will read more slowly, and I might slow down to 15 pages an hour or 10 pages an hour. If I'm reading a very dense work of nonfiction, or a nonfiction book that's just very packed with information, like a biography or history, that will also slow me down to possibly 10 pages an hour. And but on the other hand, if I'm reading genre fiction, contemporary fiction, and so on, I might speed up to 30, maybe even 40 pages an hour at max. And if I'm reading a lighter nonfiction book, like a memoir that you don't have to think too deeply about, some other nonfiction book that's lighter, like, I don't know, humor or essays or something that are meant to be pretty light, those I can read more quickly, perhaps, and I might speed up to 30 pages an hour or something. And then, in addition to the type of book that I read, there's how the book is formatted. So you have certain books where it looks like the publisher tried to just stuff as many words as possible onto the page and made the font as tiny as possible, and so the pages are this tall and they have these gigantic blocks of prose and they're very intimidating. Then you have books with really wide margins, really spaced out lines, and those you feel like you can kind of just fly through. And so that'll change how I read, how quickly I read. So that's how quickly I read, roughly 20 pages an hour. And then I want to talk then about why I think I read at that speed. Now, one thing is that I think I'm just by nature a slow processor. I tend to process things slowly, but once they're processed, they're pretty comfortably in my brain. And so that inherently lends itself to reading slowly. But on top of that, I'm very much a mind wanderer, you know, and not just while I'm reading. My mind wanders when I'm driving, when I'm in class, when I'm reading, when I'm writing, when I'm on a jog or whatever. I'm a chronic mind wanderer, and I don't mean to say that as though it's some sort of an illness. I think mind wandering is good, but my mind wanders while I'm reading, and you know, I might either stop reading because some thought came to my mind and I want to pursue it for a minute, and it may not have nothing to do with what I'm reading, or it may happen that I read through a paragraph and realize that the words just went in through the eyes and out through the ears because my mind was on planet Mars or something. I think another reason I read slowly is because the books I tend to pick up don't tend to be all that light. I read quite a bit of nonfiction, and the nonfiction that I read tends to range between being very old, and old books tend to read more slowly, I think, because even if they were first written in English, they tend to be written in older idioms of English, which can mean that they need to be a modern reader processes them. Sorry for my lisp. Processes them a little bit more slowly than they would have by readers in the day. And so I read a lot of dense books, a lot of old books. A lot of the fiction I read is not like contemporary literary fiction. It's a lot of classics, a lot of dense books, and so on. And so I think that lends itself to slow reading as well. And so I'm a slow reader, and that can frustrate me sometimes when I want to get like 50 pages read and I realize that an hour has passed and I've only gotten through 10 pages, you know, because I'm reading a dense work of history or something. That is incredibly frustrating to me. But on the other hand, when I try to speed up my reading by not subvocalizing, so when we read, we often sound out the words in our heads while we read, the same way that we would while we're talking, and that slows reading down because it takes longer to enunciate words than it does to just process the meanings of the words. And so the idea of not subvocalizing is just processing the meaning of the words, but not, enunciating them in your head, which will presumably speed up reading. And when I try to do something like that and try to suppress my mind wandering and try to read more quickly, it immediately sucks all the fun out of reading. It immediately feels like a chore, like I'm sprinting instead of just going for a pleasant jog, basically. And it also tends to make me not process the book as well. I forget things, I don't process the meaning as well if it's like a work of fiction that has subtleties in it, and so on and so forth. I just, and those are the two main reasons for reading, right? Pleasure and learning. And if I'm missing both of those by trying to read faster, then why would I try to read faster, And so that's where I've sort of settled, which isn't to say I don't still get frustrated by how slow a reader I am, but that's where I've sort of settled. Like, I'm a slow reader, and I should just accept it, and that's okay, and get on with my life. And then another piece that I was sort of interested in here was why so many people are interested in speeding up their reading. So, Steve Donahue gets asked all the time how he reads so fast. He reads 150 pages an hour. He reads dozens of books a week. He reads like 1,000+ books a year. How does he do it? People ask him all the time. And so it seems to me that a lot of people are really interested in trying to read more quickly, and I'm kind of interested in why they are. And I mean, I think that there are a couple reasons. I think if you're on BookTube, then you want books to talk about in your Friday reads that you've actually finished and therefore can talk about in some depth, whereas when you've only read a quarter or half of a book, you're just going to be able to sort of give vague impressions of how things are going. If you're on Goodreads, I think Goodreads provides an extra amount of pressure because of the Goodreads goals. Those tend to motivate fast reading because you think, oh, I need to get to 200 pages, 200 books this year, so I need to read through my books really quickly. And that motivates us to want to read more quickly. Then I think there's also just sort of the crushing weight of our TBRs. We all have gigantic TBRs that are endless and ever-growing, and, there are a lot of books to read, and not that much time in life. And so we want to get to all the books we want to read, and we just won't be able to. Those of us who are mortal, who aren't Steve Donahue, will need to pick and choose what we read, just because we're never probably going to read as quickly as he does. And so I think that those are reasons that we want to read more quickly. And I think that those are interesting, but I kind of want to end out this video by asking the question, is it worthwhile to want to read more quickly? And I sort of touched on it already with my own approach to my own speed of reading, which is that, reading should be about pleasure and about learning. Well, it's not about learning for everyone. Some people just read for pleasure, and that's fine. But you should read at the speed where you're getting what you want out of the books you're reading, which might sound like a truism, but, if you try to start speed reading and it means that you're not enjoying it or you're not remembering stuff, then why bother doing it? Just read at the speed you can read, and just accept that you're going to read the amount you're going to read. And you will probably still end up reading a lot, because most people don't read at all. So even if you're only reading like 15 pages a day, I mean, that's 75 pages every 5 days or so. That's plenty. That's 150 pages in 10 days. Which is the length of a lot of books, And I think, too, what I'm starting to realize is that reading isn't just reading, the mind wandering that I do, for example, is fun. I enjoy mind wandering. That's what, and nothing profound comes out of my mind wandering. I don't have any great ideas, or, I don't realize the meaning of the universe, but it's enjoyable. I like doing it, I was the kid who would be on a road trip with his parents driving when he was a kid and would just stare out the window and just be perfectly entertained doing that, I was that kid. And so mind wandering for me is enjoyable on some level. And so if I'm mind wandering about something I'm reading or not something I'm reading, then whatever. And while I'm reading, I often like to look things up We all like to look things up while we're reading that we come across while we're reading that we don't know much about and want to know more about, and that will take time out of reading, and so slow down reading. Also, there are things like the cat who is around while I'm reading and may want to cuddle, and that may slow down reading because it is a bit of a work of acrobatics to be able to read with a cat on your lap sometimes, especially if she's a very sort of involved cuddler, which Bessie is. And then I've also, this year especially, started to listen to music a lot while I read. And I think that inherently slows down your reading because you're going to be processing the music as you process the book too. And even if the music doesn't have words in it, I can't read with music that has singing in English in it. I cannot do that because I will get just totally, it just destroys my ability to process the words. But if I'm listening to classical music, even then, my brain is processing the music. Your brain isn't passive when it's hearing music. It's paying attention to what the instruments or the singers are doing. And so it inherently slows down your reading. And again, to go back to the mind-wandering thing, if I have a piece of music on while I'm reading, then I might want to stop reading for a minute to listen to an interesting passage of the music, and without the distraction of reading. And so, reading isn't just reading. It's sort of it's an activity with other things around it that are enjoyable all together. And so, yeah, I mean, and that might not be the case for everyone, but anyway, this video hasn't really gone anywhere. I certainly don't mean to step on anyone's toes and don't mean to say that, other people are if you want to speed up, then therefore your reading life is going to be less fulfilling or something like this. I'm just saying my opinion about all of this, that I think I'm okay with being a slow reader for now at least. And yeah, and anyway, I would like to hear your thoughts on anything I've said and your answers to the questions I posed at the beginning. Yeah, I'll leave it at that and let you all go.